This week on the FliteCast, it's a new dawn, a new year, and a new schedule for everything involved. We gotta figure out what movies we're all jacked up to see in 2026. Plus, one of the trades silently making some waves again by burying the lead in one of their exposés that the regurgitators found about Netflix's true intentions for theatrical releases once they buy Warner Brothers. I told you so, just doesn't cut it. But we'll get into it this week on the FliteCast. Welcome to the FliteCast, a place where opinions aren't right or wrong, and where we can agree or disagree about movies, TV, and other assorted media because it's all subjective. My name is Ray. Thank you so much for joining me. Happy New Year to everyone involved. Hope everybody had a lovely holiday. I had a fantastic holiday, seriously. I had a great holiday with the family, had some great time off from work, somewhat refreshed and re-energized for a new year. A new year is always cathartic, or at least you like it to be cathartic. Everybody has their resolutions. Everybody has their goals and whatnot that they're going to set out for the new year. And it's all about consistency and it's all about organization, right? Isn't that what it's all about? Right? This isn't a self-help podcast, but if I have any nuggets of wisdom, any pearls that I think are a good idea, I might throw them out there. We talk about stuff other than movies, TV, and other assorted media at times on this show. But yeah, it's a new dawn, a new year, and a new schedule. And with that, I've decided to take listener Jared Cardos, up on his suggestion. Here's what we're doing. As you can hear right now, this is not Flight Chat. This episode is coming out on a Sunday, and this is the main show, FliteCast, if you will, which of course you can find at theflightcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts, along with all of my other shows, including the Flight Chat show, which is our listener feedback show, which will now be on Saturdays. We'll do that at the end of the week. So we're going to bookend the weeks here. We're going to try a Saturday situation here, if you will, especially since football season is ending. Sundays are going to be a little bit more wide open for me as far as the schedule is concerned, especially since the stupid Detroit Lions didn't make the playoffs. But whatever, it is what it is. So that's your main schedule. Saturdays will be Flight Chat. Sundays will be the main show, the FliteCast, for the talk of the next week. And then in between, we're going to have some stuff going on here with respect to not only at theflightcast.com, but also at youtube.com/theflightcast. I feel like I haven't told enough people that this show is on YouTube. And you can totally go to the YouTube channel for the FliteCast to listen to this show. And also keep your eyes peeled for some other things that will be popping up in the realm of visual aids on theflightcast.com, or rather on youtube.com/theflightcast, I should say. So stay tuned for that. Some more visual stuff coming your way with respect to this particular show. For those of you intrepid listeners, thank you, very loyal listeners who listen to this show. Greatly appreciate that. We've got a decent amount to talk about for this particular first week of 2026, but also want to take a moment to thank all the supporters of patreon.com/theflightcast. Thank you so much for your support. I hope that everybody enjoyed this year's 12 Days of Flight Review. We got through all 12 days. We did. We got through a good pile of Christmas movies for sure. There are more movies in 2026 that I need to watch. I have a massive back catalog. I got Oscar winners that I haven't watched, Oscar nominees that I haven't watched for the last 10 years or so. Some big movies that I know a number of you have seen that I have not seen. And then, of course, there's television. I don't know how I'm going to get through the television thing, but I'm going to try. I really am. Episodes of Flightbox have been few and far between. I know there's some current TV shows that we're going to be talking about. I know Starfleet Academy is coming up. I know we've got Daredevil Born Again Season 2 down the road. I know we've got other shows popping up here. And you know what? I will apologize to Alex and a number of others that, I was completely intent on watching Stranger Things. I was absolutely intent on it, and it did not work out, unfortunately. I mean, it was just unwieldy, especially with the holidays. I mean, our plans for the holidays got a lot busier in a good sense, in a very good sense. So I'm not going to apologize for that part of it. But the funny part about it is that somehow, with everybody talking about the Stranger Things ending and all of the mountains of people who surprisingly, or not surprisingly, really are disappointed by it, I'm still in the bubble. There's still only 3 things about Stranger Things that I know at all. That Millie Bobby Brown's character is named 11, there's some character named Vecna who apparently is a villain, and that there's a place called the Upside Down. It's literally still all I know. I have it's now become kind of a social experiment, if you will, to see exactly how long I can last in the Stranger Things bubble. And honestly, it's going to be an interesting case, unless somebody decides to be an asshole and spoils it for me here, which I hope no one listening to this is willing to do that, right? Whether you liked the finale or not, please at least respect, not sending in spoilers. Don't be that person. Seriously, don't be. I don't think any of you would be, but just don't be that person, that just decides, well, you shouldn't like the show anyway. Here's because I've seen people do that. I've seen trolls and bots and really disgusting waste of space do that in the past, and it would be very unfortunate if that were the case. But it really is going to be kind of a tale of the tape, a test, if you will, because I've said, I've adopted this theory, and I think many others have as well. This idea of, well, if you just if you craft your algorithm, and if you watch your conversation around things, and you can definitely avoid these spoilers, even for a show as big as Stranger Things, right? It's been a couple of days, right, since that last episode aired, and I'm going to go to work tomorrow, and I'm going to have coworkers that have seen it, but I'm going to remind them I am in the bubble, right? And I know they're not going to be mean about it, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And at some point, hopefully in the not too distant future, I can actually watch through the show and see exactly what all the fuss was about in both ways, whether the people that loved it and the people that, hated the ending for whatever reason, right? But either way, I don't know how we're going to get through the TV thing. We're going to try. We are, because there's so many shows as well in addition to movies. But I definitely have a lot more movies that I want to watch. We're going to talk about that here in a second. As far as the 2026 schedule is concerned, among other things. But yes, thank you so much for those of you supporters of patreon.com/FliteCast. Hope you've been enjoying the bonus content. Stay tuned for more bonus content. And as I've been saying, I got to read Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow in the not too distant future to make certain, and I got to get Flight Report going. There's a bunch of comics that I haven't read, right? So much media to consume, and that's one of the resolutions this year for me is consume more media. I know that that's a weird thing because people are like, well, you need to consume less media and be more productive. Well, part of me being more productive, especially with respect to this show and being a content creator in general, is if I consume more media that I can talk about, right? That I can share in conversation with you and with others. So that's definitely one of the goals for 2026. So wish me luck on that one. And if you want to hear any of that bonus content or even see some of that bonus content, go ahead and subscribe to patreon.com/theflightcast. There's 3 tiers. There's the Flight Cadet tier, which gives you the basic access, which you'll get the Flight Speed episodes and the Friday Flight episodes and the Saturday Soliloquy when there is no Friday Flight. There's Flight Crew, which gets you access to those, plus the Sun Just Don't Rants, which I definitely need some more of those. I'm going to have one cooking probably for this Tuesday, more than likely. Another rant about idiot fans and whatnot, because that's the quickest thing to rant about these days, if you will, aside from all the franchise stuff. And then there's Flight Officer. That's the big tier, the big top tier that gets you access to everything, including all the bonus episodes of Flight Review, Flight Box, Flight Report, 12 Days of Flight Review, Flight Fright, which was a spooky season show that I did, the movies that I reviewed this past October, which I'm definitely going to do that again. And we'll find some more holiday themes and whatnot. We'll find some themes, right? Got to find some themes with respect to a lot of these movies that I have not watched before that I need to watch for the first time. Because I'm looking at my shelf of physical media, and I've got blind buys between my steelbooks and my physical media. Oh, I forgot to mention that too. Physical media, yes. We got to have a talk about physical media because I feel like I'm so invested in physical media, and with all the stuff we're hearing now about, with respect to Netflix and whatnot, which we're going to get to here in a bit as well. I think physical media, our preference for physical media, what we like, our enjoyment of it. I can't think of the damn word. My goodness. Am I nervous? Am I really nervous? No, trying not to be nervous here in the first show of 2026, but just having a predilection for physical media, being a physical media enthusiast. There you go. We need to talk about that more on this show. I feel like talking about that with Scott and Chris Belga and the guys over at Vodka Stream, it has its points and definitely is enjoyable because they love Criterion and they love the Steelbooks and whatnot, just like I do. But we need to have more of a conversation about it, especially when it comes to physical media not even being remotely dead and more of it still being accessible for all of us with respect to where we can get it and the types of physical media that we indeed collect in our libraries. So stay tuned for more of that as well. Definitely want to feature more talk about physical media on this particular show. So yeah, lots to do. Lots of regulations, not regulations, my goodness. Learn how to talk, Ray. Lots of resolutions for 2026 with respect to new things coming here in this new year. So thank you so much, patreon.com/the FliteCast subscribers, and thank you to everybody supporting the FliteCast podcast network. All right, before we talk about our plan for 2026 and what movies we're hyped up to see, we got to talk about this Netflix thing, because I got on social media a couple of days ago and Culture Crave, of all places, Culture Crave is where I see this. And I'm not surprised, because usually when a nugget of information like this comes out, it does get buried in a bigger story. And that's exactly what happened a couple of days ago. A Deadline piece written by Anthony D'Alessandro, titled Stranger Things Finale Delivers 25 million plus to movie theaters after New Year's play, more than 60% of that from AMC box office update. So this is a box office update story that was posted on January 2nd, Friday, January 2nd, pardon me. And so the line that got pulled out of this story that everybody freaked out over, or the lines rather, I mean, it's buried in this whole thing about sources are telling us this morning that the Stranger Things finale cleared well north of 25 million, possibly even 30 million in concession cash to movie theaters over its New Year's Eve and New Year's Day play. Right. Okay, cool. Of that figure, 15 million was generated by the number one circuit, AMC theaters, off an attendance of 753,000. By comparison, 20th Century Studios' Avatar Fire and Ash, the number one grossing film of the season, made a combined 23.7 million over New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So this is sounding like good news, right? It sounds like a great box office report for the exhibitors. It says exhibition couldn't charge tickets for the Netflix event given the cast's contractual terms for residuals. Hence, the streamer and circuits got around this by reserving seats with concession vouchers. Oh, okay, a little trickeration. At AMC theaters, such concession vouchers cost 20 per seat. At 231 locations, AMC had a bit more than a third of the total theater count showing Stranger Things. AMC estimates that more than half of all Stranger Things fans watch the finale in a movie theater do so at an AMC venue. And there's all this other stuff about Stranger Things, about how the finale played in over 620 locations, and the series creators, the Duffer Brothers, announced 2 days before the finale played theaters that 1.1 million seats were sold, a number that was ahead of K-pop Demon Hunter's RSVPs, which made 700 million, before its late August 2-day play. It says, note, AMC, the number one circuit, didn't play K-pop during that run, which yielded exhibitors 19 million and delivered Netflix its first number one ranking title at the weekend box office. It says you could say that Stranger Things finale is their new number one ranking title at the box office, though not on a weekend. But it's not box office, it's concession cash, which the movie theaters get to keep, and don't have co-share a la regular studio film rental. That's a sweet late Christmas gift from Netflix, the pending owner of Warner Brothers. Right, so that's the thing. This is all like a goodwill gesture. At least that's what it's supposed to look like, a goodwill gesture, right? Because it's not box office. It's concession cash that the movie theaters get to keep and don't have to share, right? Because ordinarily, the profits for a regular theatrical release have to be shared between the exhibitors and the studio. Okay, great. So this is sounding even better for the studios. Continuing on, it says exhibition wants Netflix to commit to theatrical runs more, and the streamer will have contractual obligations to filmmakers once they complete their acquisition of Warner Brothers. Stranger Things finale is something of an olive branch to exhibitors, and a means for Netflix to experiment and dip their toes into theatrical business. Ooh, okay, wow, here we go. They're finally dipping it, even though they've had theatrical releases for however long, right? But let's go ahead and test the waters. Yeah, all right, sure. Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos has waffled in his messaging on theatrical, telling analysts on an earnings call post the success of K-pop that Netflix prioritizes their first-run movies for the service. Oh, so he has said that before, okay. Post Netflix firming up its bid for Warner Brothers, Sarandos has changed his tune, telling the media, quote, "There's been a lot of talk about theatrical distribution, so we want to set the record straight. We are 100% committed to releasing Warner Brothers films in theaters with industry standard windows." End quote. The town continues to worry what traditional means for Netflix. And here is the sentence that Culture Crave and all the regurgitators put out that freaked everyone out on social media. Sources have told Deadline that Netflix have been proponents of a 17-day window which would steamroll the theatrical business, while circuits such as AMC believe the line needs to be held around 45 days. There it is. What have I been saying? Seriously, I told you so really just does not do this justice. Now I know, right? First thing I saw when I got on social media was all these people, and I saw this on Reddit too. I don't believe that for a second. That's just propaganda from Paramount boosters and the Ellisons trying to squash the Netflix. First of all, how does that even make any damn sense? Because number one, this is not in the hands of the court of public opinion. This is in the hands of regulators now, right? Federal regulators that have to decide whether or not this is going to be an approved deal. And mind you, like that's where this is because Warner Brothers, as of a week or so ago, or at least a couple of days ago, I read already rejected the latest Paramount bid from the Ellisons, right? So Warner Brothers keeps rejecting the Ellisons, right? Warner Brothers keeps rejecting Paramount. Like the shareholders do not need you or anybody else to convince them, hey, which way they're going to go in that regard, right? So how does that even make sense? That like this is going to be like this news is going to like somehow help Paramount in that regard. What? It's going to convince the shareholders? No, the shareholders already know. The shareholders are already aware of this, okay? The shareholders are part of that 1%. And this is my entire point with people rooting for one over the other. There is no such thing. There should not be any rooting for corporations with this whatsoever. Don't root for either Netflix or Paramount. What you should root for is for Warner Brothers to stay solvent on its own. It does not matter if you think that's actually going to happen. Doesn't matter if it's actually going to happen or not. That's what you should be rooting for. You should not be rooting for either one of these corporations whatsoever. You should be rooting for Warner Brothers to be solvent and for the big five to exist, because buyouts and consolidation are not good for the audience. They just aren't. And I don't need to go any further into telling you why they aren't. You see what's happened with Disney Fox. You see what's happening with all these other consolidations, if you will, right? Like, that's not a good thing. You want more competition, right? And so here, what did I say? What have any of us that have been trying to warn all of the Netflix like supporters, right? It shouldn't be a damn pissing contest. It shouldn't be, oh, we got to root for Netflix because they're the lesser of two evils. We went through this politically, didn't we? Where we talked about how, there's a lesser of two evils. And then in the last 9 years, haven't we seen that it's not really the lesser of two evils? One is extremely evil, while the other one is just inept at times and doesn't have the best messaging and maybe is too antiquated, right? But still a far better solution than the other side, right? That's what we have here in this regard. Because again, this is not a pick the version that's going to hurt the least. It's going to hurt either way. But what's really going to hurt is the theatrical model getting torched, getting destroyed. Okay. When you hear them say, sources say, like this isn't just me, this isn't just fans like concerned about 17-day theatrical windows or even 45 days. Remember the Batman? The Batman came out 2022, right? And remember that originally when that movie released, they were talking about only giving it 45 days and then it would be on HBO Max, right? They did that. And remember initially when it came to box office, we were talking about the possibility of whether or not it would break $1 billion because of course that's the magical mark, $1 million. And it didn't get there. It got to 772 million, which is still really good despite what the whole $200 million budget, all that nonsense, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, once that 45 days hit and it was available on HBO Max, that was the end of its theatrical run, right? That was it. Now, what happens when you have a film like Avengers Doomsday, just as a hypothetical, right? Or Man of Tomorrow, and it's making money and it's steamrolling and it's doing well, and then all of a sudden gets cut off at 45 days, or even worse, 17 days. Like, I don't have to tell you, like, how 17 days is going to go. But, like, 45 days is bad enough as it is, and we've seen that already. And if you hear sources say this, right, this isn't just me concerned about this. This isn't just any other, like, YouTubers or podcasters concerned about it. This is the industry concerned about it. Okay, these are the unions. Okay, the writers are concerned about this. The producers are concerned about this. The directors are concerned about this. The Actors Guild, like SAG-AFTRA, they're like lying in wait. And part of the reason they're lying in wait is because they know that either way they're going to get paid. They're either going to get paid for theatrical presentation or they're going to get paid for streaming. Their payday, the actors that really give a shit about this are going to be the ones that really care about theatrical presentation. They don't all care that much about theatrical presentation. But we do, don't we? Don't we want that option? I've said that from the beginning. And again, I'm not telling you that you should just jump ship and immediately start rooting for Paramount. I'm telling you don't root for either of them. I'm telling you that no way is this going to be a win-win scenario for any of us. This is a no-win scenario for all of us. There is no lesser of two evils. We do not want Warner Brothers bought out by either of these companies. We want Warner Brothers to remain solvent on its own. That's ultimately what we should be rooting for. And if you don't understand that at this point, if you don't realize that either you have, all of your political concerns, because that's what it is. You're being snowballed by these political concerns that you have. You're being snowballed by these political concerns that you have with respect to who Paramount is aligned with and who the Ellisons are aligned with. All of that is clouding your judgment, and you're not seeing the actual forest from the trees. You're not seeing that if Netflix does these shorter windows, which by the way they've been doing, right? When you see, the last Knives Out movie that came out in select theaters on this date a week, for 1 week, and then it's on the Netflix app, right? When you see that, think about that for Man of Tomorrow. Think about that for the Batman Part 2. And I got plenty of bots. I got plenty of people on threads and Reddit saying, I don't believe that for a second. I'll believe it when I see it. Believe it when they tell you. Don't take a billionaire at their word when they tell you what you want to hear. Believe them when they tell the truth. And this is them telling the truth. Look at their actions, right? It's like I said on Vodka Stream a couple of weeks ago. I can't go by what Sarandos' promises are now because he's trying to get regulatory approval. I have to go by what his company has done. I have to go by what his actual actions have been this entire time. And Netflix's actions for the last decade have been select releases in theaters and then on the streaming app because the streaming app is most important, right? And certainly no physical media releases, right? Few and far between with respect to that. I have to go by action. I have to go by what they actually do. So you can sit there and act like everything's hunky-dory and nothing's going to change, or you can actually look at the behavior of this company and realize theatrical presentation might be in serious, serious trouble. And that line, of course, was buried in this piece, right? Again, talking about, Stranger Things making money for AMC. And AMC, reporting the rest of their numbers and talking about, oh, this is this and this is that, and we're committed to this and we're committed to that. Yeah, great. Great AMC. But yeah, no. For people who thought that this was just going to go away, no. I mean, we're still in line for all the regulatory hoopla. I doubt Paramount is just going to go quietly. They're going to keep offering and offering until they feel like they can bamboozle the shareholders and until finally someone says enough, right? I don't know exactly how that process goes, but one way or the other, look, the no-win situation is in effect, guys. The Kobayashi Maru is here, right? We're going to have to deal with the prospect of Warner Brothers being owned by one of these companies. We are, but we're going to have to take all the warts that come with that, and there are warts both ways. This idea that one is so vastly worse than the other, it's in the wrong direction, okay? Because all of your political concerns about Paramount, all of your political concerns about the Ellisons, that is all far more easily fixed than closed theaters. It's far more easily fixed than shut down screens. It's far more easily fixed than theater chains going bankrupt. And make no mistake, that can happen. Remember 5 years ago? 6 years ago now? Remember 2020? Remember what the pandemic did to your local theaters? I know what it did to our local theaters here. Imagine that happening regularly. Imagine that happening by design because of what Netflix wants to do. You can keep your head in the sand as long as you want. Know that this is what Netflix's ultimate plan is. Once they get past whatever their contractual obligations with IMAX and with the studios and the exhibitors are, this is what they're going for. They're angling for this. This deadline piece didn't come out of nowhere. The sources say isn't somebody trying to push things in the Ellison circle. This is real. This is what Sarandos and Netflix have been doing for the last 10 years. Open your eyes. Pay attention. That's the best I could say. That's all I can say. And there was no way that I could start off the year with that story coming out a couple days ago and not talk about it. I had to. Absolutely. So, yeah, just keep your eyes peeled with respect to that. And remember, you know what? The grass is not always greener on the other side. Even if you're, aside from all of your political concerns, and I get it. I get your political concerns. There are plenty of them. But your political concerns should be concerning with all of legacy media, not just with one studio. You should be concerned about all the one percenters. You should be concerned about all of the CEOs trying to extract as much money from you as possible. You really should, because that's really what it's about. It's not about, which side of the aisle they're sitting on. It's about what they're doing to distract you so that you hand over your credit card data for the rest of your life. That's what it's really about. And that's what you really should be paying more attention to. That's what we all should be paying more attention to be 100% honest with you. So there's that. Hey, Happy New Year. How about that, huh? All right, enough of that nonsense. Let's talk about movies in 2026, because I had this revelation when I was doing the episode. What was that? I did a special episode of Flight Review for free on Patreon for all the free subscribers and everybody, and the paid subscribers as well. I did a year in review, and I realized that I only saw 11 movies in the theater last year. That's too low. It is. It's too low. For somebody that is a proponent of theatrical presentation as I am, right? As much as I've talked about enjoying streaming and enjoying physical media, I mean, I want options. Like, ultimately, at the end of the day, I want options, and I feel like there is a place at the table for all three of these outlets, right? There's a place at the table for theatrical, there's a place at the table for streaming, there's a place at the table for physical media. I don't see why they can't all, especially in a capitalistic society, exist and succeed. They most certainly can. Trust me, I spend money on all of them all the time. So, with that in mind, since I have more than enough physical media, and since I pay for apps on a monthly basis, why the hell am I not going to the theater more often? Well, to be honest with you, I didn't schedule it out properly enough. There were a decent amount of movies last year that I didn't get to see that I did have interest in seeing, and I really just kind of restricted to, the comic book movies all the time, right? Like, I make certain to see those. If it's Marvel or DC, got to see it, right? And I'm the guy, like, I paid money to see Morbius, I paid money to see Madam Web, I paid money to see Kraven the Hunter, and all three Venom movies, right? I've willingly paid money to see in theaters and own physically in 4K glorious steelbook all of the Sony Universal Marvel characters, if that's even what they're still calling it, or maybe it's the Sony Spider-Verse now. Whatever. I have the Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse movies as well, the animated ones too. I'm just saying, I always see the comic book movies. But what about everything else, right? Because we've got a decent amount of comic book movies this year, but we've got other stuff down the hopper. Well, I made a schedule. I made a definitive schedule this year. And granted, this schedule is subject to change. Obviously, if things come up or if things get added on, right? Maybe there's something that is not on my radar, that is not on this list that I would like to add later, right? But quite honestly, first movie of the year that I'm interested in, to be honest with you, is 28 years later, The Bone Temple. But in order for me to see that, I would have to watch the 28 Days Later movies, because I have seen none of them. I told you I have a backlog. And yeah, it goes back maybe even further than the last 10 years or so. I've never seen a single one of the 28 Days Later movies. Not 28 Days Later, not 28 Weeks Later, and certainly not the most recent 28 Years Later. But The Bone Temple looks interesting, and I like the cast. The cast looks pretty loaded, so maybe that would be another potential binge watch. And that would be easier than trying to binge watch an entire show like Stranger Things or One Piece. I bring up One Piece because a coworker of mine really wants me to watch One Piece. Like, really, 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 really wants me to watch One Piece. But yeah, trying to binge like 2 or 3 movies would probably be easier than trying to binge whole seasons of a show in that regard. So maybe that'll happen, but that's January 16th, right? That's when that's supposed to come out. Also, that's when The Rip is supposed to come out. Now, that's a Netflix movie. That's the crime movie with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. That's on January 16th as well. But again, that's a Netflix movie. So that's one that, sit at home, right? Following the Ted Sarandos plan. I can watch that one at home. How about that? So there's that. Then there really isn't anything in March, which is fine because I got some plans for Black History Month as far as what I want to do for some other movies. But again, maybe something else pops up with respect to what I want to watch. But then you get into March, and we got a new Pixar movie, Hoppers, which is that movie about animals, and I think people like living through animals, something like that. I vaguely have seen the trailer for this, but it's Pixar, and that just reminds me of all the Pixar I've got to get caught up on, because there's like 8 or 9 Pixar movies that I have not seen, which include both of the Inside Outs, Finding Dory, Elemental, The Good Dinosaur, and a number of others. I feel like there's kind of a line of demarcation, although I'm caught up on all the Toy Stories, right? I've seen all the Toy Stories. Uh, and I'll see Toy Story 5, which is later this year. Apparently, that's the release date for that. I've seen Lightyear. Lightyear was the last one that I saw in theaters, the last Pixar movie that I saw in theaters. So it's weird. Like, there's a couple here and there that I need to see, right? And I will admit, part of the reason that I haven't necessarily like reached out. Oh, I take that back. No, no, no. Lightyear was the last one that I saw in theaters. Soul was the last one that I watched. Period. As far as the Pixar movie, as far as catch up in that regard, but I will say that part of my hesitation in terms of watching Pixar movies is they're all emotional. Is there a single unemotional Pixar movie, one that doesn't at least get you watery eyed? No, I don't think there is. So yeah, in my respect, I try not to. I gotta wait for like my most emotionally vulnerable moments where it's like, you know what, I haven't had a good cry in a while. Let me go ahead and throw in a Pixar movie. Yeah. So I wait for that. I imagine Hoppers, especially with adorable animals, is probably not going to be any different. So that's in March, March 6th. March 20th, that's the new Andy Weir adaptation project, Hail Mary, which I saw the trailer. So the big thing that all the book writers said, don't watch the trailer because there's a big thing that gets spoiled. Yes, I'm aware of it. Although I've had one or two people tell me that no, there's other stuff that happens that is still going to be a surprise. So don't worry that you've seen the trailer. There's other twists and turns that are going to happen. I'm like, okay, all right, cool. But I love The Martian. Shonda and I both love The Martian. It's a great movie. We went and saw that at the theater a number of years ago when that released. So yeah, Project Hail Mary is on the list for sure. I would say April 3rd is the first day where it's like, okay, day one, gotta see it. And that is the great people at Illumination giving us the Super Mario Galaxy movie. And, you know, we watched that trailer again earlier today, and I tell you what, seeing Peach and Toad flying towards the damn planet, going through the rings, just, if you have not played Mario Galaxy, I mean, Mario is my number one favorite video game franchise of all time. If they came to me and said, Ray, you can only play one video game franchise for the rest of your life, I would cut them off mid-sentence and say Mario. Will play any and all Mario games. And this is coming from somebody who grew up on Mario, has certainly played Mario Galaxy multiple times and owns it for the Nintendo Switch. Used to own it for the Nintendo Wii, but I haven't played Mario Odyssey yet. Yeah, I have a backlog on video games as well. It all changed with respect to when I changed career paths and stopped working at GameStop. But either way, this movie looks amazing. And the first one was phenomenal. It was everything that I wanted. It was everything that I desired for a Mario movie. I said for years, make it CGI animation. Allow him and Luigi to do what they do in the damn game. And they did it. And here we go with a sequel. And I can't wait. It's going to be amazing. That's April 3rd. That's a day one viewing. No doubt about it. And then there's the drama, which that's the one with Zendaya and Robert Pattinson, is it not? That's an A24 movie, right? And you want to talk about an A24 like backlog, if you will. I've seen a smattering of A24 movies. The last one that I saw was Midsummer. And if you want my full thoughts on that movie, go ahead and subscribe to patreon.com/theflightcast and listen to my flight review of Midsummer. Yeah, that was a movie. Man, boy, oh boy, that was a movie. I'm still debating. No, I'm not debating. I'm going to own it. It's going to be part of the library. But boy, do I have some thoughts. If you want to hear my full thoughts on that, for sure. But A24 is some crazy shit. It really is. Definitely. But yeah. So that's also on April 3rd. I'm probably not going to do a double feature because I'll be in different mindsets with respect to both of those movies. Then you get into May, and okay, The Devil Wears Prada 2 that's day one, has to. Because yes, I love the first one. Yes, the first one was fantastic. And yes, I really like how a lot of people, you know, myself included, who don't necessarily think the ending of the first movie ages all that well, the fact that the second movie even exists tells you, oh, they're fixing that, right? You know, in whatever way they're going to fix it. And I can't wait to see exactly how they're going to do that. So yes, looking forward to Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, and Emily Blunt, and Stanley Tucci reuniting. That's going to be amazing. The Sheep Detectives. Now this one, I saw this a couple of weeks ago, this trailer. Someone on Threads posted this. This is on May 8th. Someone on Threads posted this. And they said, if I just showed you this trailer, under no circumstances would you ever believe this movie was what it was about within the first like minute or so of viewing it. And they're right. Because the turn that this trailer took, I'm like, what? Are you serious? I'm not even going to give it away. If you have not seen the trailer for The Sheep Detectives, just watch it. And then realize that holy shit, this is where this is going. It's based off of a book series. there's a part of me that's like, yeah, I have to see this. Just out of sheer curiosity, I have to see this. I don't care how good or not it is. I just have to see it and see exactly what this is going to be and how this is going to play out, especially with this particular cast in mind, for sure, starting with Hugh Jackman himself. So, yeah, that's on May 8th. And then we get Star Wars on May 22nd. Yes, the first Star Wars movie since what? Force Awakens? No, not Force Awakens. My goodness, what am I talking about? First Star Wars movie since The Rise of Skywalker, theatrically released in 2019. First since then, which of course is The Mandalorian and Grogu, which, that's going to be an interesting one because Anthony and I were talking about this on Threads the other day about how it will be interesting to see how many people who were fans of the show on Disney Plus gravitate to the movie theater to see this film because it's a crapshoot. We really don't know. Like, how is that audience going to translate? How is that audience going to turn over with respect to, having watched a show on Disney Plus and now going to the theater to see a movie? I don't know how well The Mandalorian and Grogu is going to do. I mean, a lot of it's going to depend on Lucasfilm and Disney's marketing, right? They need to market it a hell of a lot better than they have Wonder Man, because there's a show that's coming out in a couple of weeks that is maybe getting less press and publicity than Ironheart, which is sad, but also probably for a lot of the similar reasons. We won't get into that right now, but you know what I'm talking about. But at any rate, The Mandalorian and Grogu, definitely on the list. Definitely going to be seeing that. Definitely will be interested to see exactly how that performs, if you will, right? Because many have said that they can't trust a Star Wars movie announcement until it actually, hits paid, or until it's actually in production, until it's actually, going to be released, right? Like it's in the final stages, if you will. And I get it, but I will also say that, with respect to this movie and with respect to others, it's because Lucasfilm spent the last 6 or 7 years focusing on streaming, right? They've put out a decent amount of shows, and, however you feel about them, I have enjoyed all of them, right? That includes the Book of Boba Fett, that includes The Acolyte, that includes Obi-Wan Kenobi. I've enjoyed all of the Lucasfilm, Disney Plus shows for Star Wars. I've enjoyed every last one of them, seriously. But, as far as their focus being on streaming, and especially under the Chapek years, right, that's why you saw the theatrical presentations for Star Wars take a back seat. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes, but that's in May, and that's going to kick off the summer movie season for sure. And then June, we got some interesting doozies here. Now, I haven't seen anything for Masters of the Universe, but according to the wiki, June 5th is when Masters of the Universe is still releasing. If any of these release dates are different, please let me know. But so far, they say that the new Masters of the Universe reboot is coming out on June 5th. All right, cool. I saw the original, obviously grew up with the He-Man cartoon. Yes, definitely will be seeing that. And then a week later is the new Steven Spielberg Disclosure Day. Now, that's aliens, right? It's supposed to be aliens because it looks like it's aliens. Whatever it is, looks like it definitely has the creep factors from like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T., and War of the Worlds. So it's Spielberg. Of course I'm going to see it. Like, it's one of my top 5 favorite filmmakers of all time, if not my number 1. I'm definitely going to see this film on June 12th. I even have a little bit of a backlog with his movies. Like, I haven't seen Meet the Fablemans. Like, how about that? What in the hell, right? So, got to watch that as well at some point later this year. Then Toy Story 5 a week after that on June 19th. Yes, I will see it. I like all the Toy Story movies. I enjoyed Toy Story 4. I do. Do I think it's the best one? No. I think the best one probably is still either the first or the second one. I did like the third one, but I just appreciate the franchise without ranking them in particular. I appreciate that the franchise has grown with its core audience. That they actually acknowledge the passage of time with respect to not only the audience, but the toys themselves, right? And have aged the toys and their progression along with us in that regard. I like that. I appreciate that. So that's what I really like for that corner of the Pixar world, if you will. So, but that's June 19th. Definitely going to see that. And then first comic book film. Can you believe all the way to June 26th before we get our first comic book film? Supergirl, which we've already seen the first teaser trailer for that. Looks awesome. All of the Guardians of the Galaxy, complaints are silly because it's space, comic book, science and whatnot in space. Obviously, it's going to have a similar vibe. It's really not just because James Gunn is in charge, right? Went through all this before, but yeah, that'll be the next film, the second theatrical presentation for the DCU, if you will. And this one will still get a wide release because will be in the middle of regulatory hoopla with respect to Warner Brothers and Netflix, because I do expect that the Warner Brothers Netflix thing is going to be solvent. It's going to go through that scrutiny, and Paramount eventually is going to find themselves out in the cold because the shareholders have decided to go in that direction. But either way, Supergirl we're going to get to see in theaters in a wide release, no doubt about it, here in 2026. And then quite possibly the movie of the season, if you will, the movie of the year as far as anticipation is concerned, on July 17th, The Odyssey. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. Teaser trailers come out for that, and I mean, what do we expect? Seriously, we expect brilliance. We expect greatness. There's only one Christopher Nolan film I have not seen yet, and I own it. Following. It's the only one of his feature films I've not seen. I have now seen them all since I finally watched Dunkirk last year. And there's not a single Christopher Nolan movie that I have not enjoyed immensely. Probably the one lowest on the list right now would probably be Insomnia, but I still need to give that a rewatch. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie all the way through. But it's Christopher Nolan. We can trust him to give us epic and like grandiose scale at such an, and with Hans Zimmer, and come on, Matt Damon in the lead with Anne Hathaway and Tom Holland, right? He's got his regular, other previous actors that he's worked with, because yes, he has totally worked with Matt Damon. He was in Interstellar. And of course, Anne Hathaway was not only in The Dark Knight Rises, but also Interstellar as well. So yeah, can't wait for that. That's going to be the movie of the year as far as grandiose scale is concerned. And then 2 weeks after that, we get Tom Holland again returning as Peter Parker in Spider-Man Brand New Day. This is the aftermath of Spider-Man No Way Home, right? So this is, everyone has forgotten who he is, but they know Spider-Man, right? That whole nebulous thing, right? And the fans have already told me don't expect this to be an adaptation of Brand New Day because they all hate the Brand New Day comic. I don't have like those strong feelings about it, but again, I actually did review that comic on Flight Report a couple years ago over on Patreon, so you can hear my thoughts there. It's been a minute, so maybe I need to reread it. I don't know. But either way, that's the MCU's first big entry. The MCU's got two big entries. That's the first one. We're looking to see some more trailers on that one because we haven't gotten much at all with respect to that film just yet. But all the way to July 31st is when we get the first big MCU theatrical project. How about that, huh? It's a crazy year in that regard. Then you get to August 28th. I want to see Coyote versus Acme just for the sake of the story of how that movie was scrapped and then brought back to life, and then all that hoopla. I just want to see it for that. That's really the biggest reason that I want to see that film. Just to be like, I saw this movie that wasn't supposed to release that ended up getting released. Yes, totally want to see that with respect to Warner Brothers. Then there's How to Rob a Bank, which I hadn't heard of this film, truthfully, until recently. But this premise sounds intriguing. A group of bank robbers has been using social media to document heists that they have pulled off, leading to pursuit from the police. And this cast is intriguing. Nicholas Hoult, Pete Davidson, Zoe Kravitz, John C. Reilly, Christian Slater, Anna Sawai. I really don't know who Anna Sawai is, although she looks familiar. Japanese actress and singer born in New Zealand. She looks familiar. I don't know what else I might have seen her in, but no, this looks intriguing. This is supposed to be September 4th. With respect to this particular film. So that's on my radar. We'll see how that goes. And then a week after that, I've been saying this wrong. How come nobody corrected me on this? No one, at least I don't think anyone has corrected me on this. If you have, I apologize. But no one told me that Clayface was actually September. I've been saying October for like months. I have. I've been saying October for months and I'm wrong. And I bet Phil corrected me. I know Phil Barker, I know he corrected me once on Vodka Stream, but I've been saying it wrong since he corrected me on Vodka Stream. But either way, Clayface is on September 11th, the third DCU cinematic effort, and that'll be intriguing. That'll be very intriguing, and kind of an intriguing date, right? September 11th, that's a Friday this year. That'll be intriguing to see how that film does. And then after that, I'm staying within the horror theme. I have to see Resident Evil. Why? Not because I own the box set of the Steelbooks with Mila Jovovich, not because I'm a massive fan of the game, because I've really never played the game. It's really because Zach Kreger's directing it. At least, again, I'm going off the wiki, so if any of this information is outdated, go ahead and let me know, and we will update this. This schedule and whatnot is subject to change. But Zach Kreger, who, of course, I saw Weapons for the first time this year, and also, I did want to bring this up, because I'll talk about this with respect to physical media. Barbarian, his first film, allegedly, according to him and one of his producers, is about to get a 4K Criterion Collection release. So that will be my opportunity to see that film because I will get it it will become part of my Criterion wing of my library when it is released. So, but Weapons was so impressive that, yeah, I do want to see what he does with Resident Evil, without question. So that's supposed to be September 18th, right? And that rounds out September. Now, there's this new movie that, again, this is another one I hadn't heard of until yesterday, Digger, which is a Tom Cruise movie, apparently. An upcoming American black comedy directed by Alejandro G. Inarritu, right? The director of Birdman, among other things, right? Like, this is Tom Cruise, John Goodman, Michael Stuhlbarg, Jesse Plemons, Sophie Wilde, Riz Ahmed, Emma Darcy, Robert John Burke, right? Sandra Huller, which I've seen her before, but I don't remember where I've seen her from. But the premise is that the most powerful man in the world causes a disaster and embarks on a mission to prove that he is the savior of humanity. Starring Tom Cruise. This sounds interesting. Very interesting. That's supposed to be out in October. October 2nd is when that movie releases. All right. So that's on my radar. A week after that, on October 9th, you have The Social Reckoning, which, yes, is the sequel, apparently. Or they're calling it a companion piece to The Social Network, because apparently it has to do, it's a Sorkin film, again, just the original director of The Social Network, or the original writer, I should say, of The Social Network, because The Social Network was written by Aaron Sorkin, but it was directed by David Fincher. And this is supposed to be a companion piece to that movie that apparently, this one is being written and directed by Aaron Sorkin, but this one is based off of Broken Code, which was written by Jeff Horwitz, a book about, in 2021, an internal document leaked from the company then known as Facebook showed it was aware of harmful societal effects from its platforms, yet persisted in prioritizing profit over addressing these harms. The leak, which was released by whistleblower Francis Haugen, resulted in reporting from the Wall Street Journal and whatnot. So, who's in this? Mikey Madison, Jeremy Strong, Jeremy Allen White, Bill Burr, Wunmi Masaku, Betty Gilpin, Billy Magnuson. I know just about all these names. Jeff Cronenweth is the DP for this. October 9th. Yeah, I'm intrigued. I am intrigued because I like The Social Network. I own The Social Network. And anything involving, blowing the whistle on Facebook and social media, being nefarious for the sake of profit. Yeah, that intrigues me. Definitely. Very much interested in that. So that's on October 9th. And then the week after that is Street Fighter. The Street Fighter movie that has drawn so much 50-50 reactions, like, I can't believe how goofy and ridiculous and silly it looks, and then other people going, this looks just as goofy and silly and ridiculous as it should. Sign me up. Yeah, count me in that second category. We watched that trailer again earlier today. What do you expect? It's Street Fighter. Did you play the video game? I don't play fighting games like that, but I played Street Fighter here and there while my buddies did, when we were at the arcade or whatever, right? It's ridiculous. It's a silly premise. It's crazy. It's nonsensical. It's fantastical. It's a video game. Why are we placing so much expectations on a video game movie? If it looks goofy and follows the video game goofiness to a T, why wouldn't I watch it? Why wouldn't I enjoy that? So yeah, definitely checking that out on October 16th. And then I wasn't sure about this as we get into November, almost towards the end of the year here. I wasn't sure about The Cat in the Hat. But we saw that trailer earlier again today, and that's, isn't it, what's his name? Bill Hader? Right, yes, Bill Hader is going to be in that one. And, I will say this, I've noticed, and I said this a little bit when I talked about The Grinch, because I saw The Grinch for the first time. It was one of the movies I reviewed for 12 Days of Flight review. The Illumination Grinch. I've also been told that the Lorax is really good as well. It seems to me that Dr. Seuss stories are better when animated, even if it's CGI animation. And so, in that respect, this probably will be a far better film than the Mike Myers live-action disaster that they tried to follow up How the Grinch Stole Christmas with. Not every Dr. Seuss project, in fact, probably most Dr. Seuss projects don't really work in live action unless you have somebody like Jim Carrey to be crazy and off the wall and off the cuff with it in that regard, right? So, yeah, glad that this is going to be animated. Looks intriguing, looks kind of funny based on that teaser trailer. So, yeah, that's November 6th. Then a couple weeks later, on November 20th, we have The Hunger Games: Sunrise on the Reaping. Now, for me to see this, I would also have to watch Mockingjay, because I have not seen either one of those, and I would have to watch the other Hunger Games prequel that this is a sequel to, right? I have only seen the first Hunger Games and Catching Fire. And of course, this is another Steelbook set that I own. I do. In fact, there's two different ones that you can buy. There's one where it's in four individual cases, and then there's another one that comes in all like a case together with stacked discs, which isn't a great disc mechanism for physical media, but it's still there, right? I got that from Walmart on a buku sale like a year or so ago because I did like Hunger Games and I did like Catching Fire. I just have not sat down to get caught up on the rest of it. So obviously, before seeing Sunrise on the Reaping, I will do that, and then I'll also watch the other prequel for this film that this is a sequel to, a prequel to the other Hunger Games movies. I know what the timeline is with respect to that. So that's on November 20th, just before Thanksgiving. Now this one, all right, this is around Thanksgiving weekend. I don't know about this one. I'm being completely honest with you because I saw the teaser for Madden, and don't get me wrong, Christian Bale as Al Davis. Well, Christian Bale is a chameleon. He can play whoever. I guarantee he's going to sound like Al Davis. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's Al Davis. Totally. What I'm not 100% on is Nick Cage as John Madden. And that's only because I know Nick Cage and I know what his delivery is like. And I've already seen and heard it in this trailer. And it doesn't sound like John Madden, right? Like, I'm not asking him to do a straight impersonation, but it just seems like Nick Cage playing John Madden, which, don't get me wrong, that could be appealing on its own, but still, as a football fan that was so used to who John Madden actually was my whole life, not just, I watched him as a broadcaster before the video game. I watched John Madden call games with Pat Summerall on Fox before the video game was even really a big, huge thing in that regard. When the video game was still like, smaller potatoes with EA Sports and whatnot, right? I don't know. I just have a perception of John Madden personally. I don't know how this is going to go. So this might be one of those where I've got to really, turn up the Nick Cage effect and be like, yeah, it's Nick Cage. Remember, it's Nick Cage at the end of the day. Nick Cage is going to be Nick Cage. And listen, I'm not saying that's not entertaining because hell yes, it's entertaining. Okay, Face Off, Raising Arizona, to name a smattering of his films that he's been in. I don't dislike Nick Cage whatsoever. I think he's awesome. But I'm just saying, as John Madden, I'll see. I'll see how that goes. But that's on November 26th. And then to round out the 2026 schedule, of course, we've got Avengers Doomsday on December 18th. And yeah, I've seen the Cap trailer. I haven't seen the Thor teaser yet. I heard people, say that, oh my goodness, this is the best acting I've seen Chris Hemsworth uh, as Thor, which is like, okay, so out of four movies and like Avengers films that he's been in, you think his best Thor acting is in this teaser? Okay. All right. Yeah, and I'd heard that. That was one of the things that people talked about with respect to him being paired with Anthony Hopkins and with Tom Hiddleston in the first film, where like he just couldn't match the, operatic like Victorian gravitas that those two actors have, right? And I get that. I do. I get that. But I mean, I still really like the first film. The Thor movies still, and as far as my rankings, they're still one, two, three, four. I still like the first one the best. I still like Thor: The Dark World number two, right? Yes, I know. I agree with you about Malekith. Okay, I agree with you. I agree with Christopher Eccleston being misused about Malekith. Okay, it's all subjective, but I can get past that because even with that, I think it's still better than what Taika Waititi did in either Thor Ragnarok with the Devil's Anus or Thor Love and Thunder with Infinity Cones. I'm sorry, I have issues with both of those movies, subjectively speaking, in that regard. I don't hate them. I don't hate them, but they're lower down on my MCU rankings list. In fact, Thor Love and Thunder is number 37 out of 37 for me. That it just is. It replaces Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Not really a fan of either of those movies in the MCU, as far as I'm concerned. But again, you're talking to somebody who, again, to this day, still believes that Captain America Winter Soldier is the best thing the MCU's ever done, cinematically speaking, in that regard. So, at any rate, obviously I'm going to see Doomsday. Obviously I'm going to see any MCU film that releases in theaters, right? And it's crazy that we have such a weird gap, and it's not really until the second half of 2026 that we're going to see all these comic book films, and then we're going to get, not going to be quite the blitz that we had with the Marvel movies in 2021, where it was that year was backloaded with Black Widow, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Eternals, and then Spider-Man No Way Home all in a 6-month period. But it's close to that. But it's at least between two different labels, and there's a decent amount of spacing. You got a month in between Supergirl and Spider-Man Brand New Day. You've got a month and a half, or a little bit, month and a couple weeks, I guess, between Spider-Man Brand New Day and Clayface. And then you've got like a good nearly 2 months, if you will, between, maybe a little over 2 months, actually, between Clayface and Avengers Doomsday. So there's more than enough room for all four of these movies to succeed in their own right. We'll see how it goes, theatrically speaking. But yeah, it is interesting that it's all going to be in the back end of 2026. And then I don't know why it's saying Dune Part 3 is going to be on the same day. Is that true? That can't possibly be true. I imagine we're going to have to amend a decent amount of this schedule because, again, I'm going by the wiki. I don't think that's not going to happen. They're not going to release Dune Part 3 on the same day as Avengers Doomsday. I doubt that. I seriously doubt that. But as of right now, that's what the wiki is saying. Obviously, I will see Dune Part 3. Saw the previous two, thoroughly enjoyed it. Denis Villeneuve, fantastic. And then here we go. This final movie that I have, the 28th movie that I have listed for 2026 on my radar as of right now, Werewolf. Why am I going to see Werewolf? Because of Robert Eggers. I have seen finally a Robert Eggers film. If you want to hear my thoughts on that, again, go to Patreon, listen to my review of Nosferatu. I have some thoughts. I most certainly have some thoughts. And mind you, I have other Robert Eggers movies that I need to watch. I need to watch The Witch, I need to watch The Lighthouse, and I need to watch The Northman. There's no question. And I will watch all of them and probably review all of them on Patreon before I see this film, Werewolf. But I'm going to see it. I'm going to see Werewolf. I'm going to see a Robert Eggers film. Listen to my thoughts on Nosferatu over on Patreon. I go into full depth with that. But it was enough for me to be like, okay, yes, I will now pay attention to what Robert Eggers does going forward for sure. And there you have it. That's the schedule, at least what's on my radar so far right now for 2026, as far as movies are concerned. So that's the theatrical schedule. It's 28 movies. Now, there's anything else here and there. Now, I know one movie that already pops into my head that I forgot about. There is a Sam Raimi movie coming out at the end of this month, at the end of January. It's called Send Help, with Dylan O'Brien, Rachel McAdams, Dennis Haysbert. And this is a movie that literally, when I first saw this trailer, I was like, okay, all right, okay, it is what it is. And then it said from Sam Raimi. And I'm like, okay, when you say from Sam Raimi, like, is it actually from Sam Raimi or is he producing it? And then at the very end, it's like directed by Sam Raimi. Oh, well, there you have it. I'm seeing it. So add this to the list. Add that to the list. I don't know why I didn't have that written down. Add Send Help to the list. Yes, I'm seeing that. It's a Sam Raimi horror thriller film. Yes, seeing that. Sam Raimi is Sam Raimi. Okay? Seriously. Drag Me to Hell, Evil Dead. Yeah. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Yeah. Absolutely. Which that's probably how because he didn't work with, because it was Rachel McAdams was in that movie. I don't think he'd worked with her before that, if I'm not mistaken. But it doesn't matter. Sam Raimi, literally the only thing I've ever held against Sam Raimi ever is that he's a Michigan State Spartan. That's it. It's the only thing. He's a fantastic director. I love that he's local. I love that he's from Michigan. He grew up in Franklin. Like, I just, the fact that he and Bruce Campbell went to Michigan State, that's it. It's the only thing that I ever hold against him. That's all. But everything else about him is awesome. Fantastic. It is what it is. It's all subjective. But no, definitely going to see that. So yeah, add Send Help to the list. That's at the end of this particular month, the end of January. So yeah, those are my plans. That is my thought. I can't go another year having only seen 11-day movies at the theater. You kidding me? Especially if theatrical presentation is about to, get even slimmer going forward. If Netflix has their way, right? That it can't falter with that. Can't ignore that. So yeah, definitely. So those are the plans. Those are absolutely the plans this year for 2026 as far as going to the theater is concerned. And if there's anything else that pops up in the middle of that, obviously I'll update the schedule and update release dates if any of these are wrong or if anything gets shifted, because everything is always subject to change, especially months and months in advance. These studios, they change stuff on a dime all the time. We know this. Right? So, but yeah, that's everything that's on my radar so far for 2026. And if there's anything that I didn't mention on this list that you guys want to mention, please feel free, don't hesitate, I should say, to send that out and to let me know what you think or what is on your radar that you think should also be on my radar that you think I might be interested in watching, theatrically speaking, in 2026 for sure. Should be a busy and hopefully a fun time at the theater this year amidst everything else in our topsy-turvy world that is going on. And I tell you what, I think that'll about do it for this particular episode of the FliteCast, the first episode of 2026. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting the FliteCast. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the new schedule and the new ideas that I have with respect to everything going forward. If you have any thoughts with respect to anything I've talked about, if you are still championing Netflix, or if you have any thoughts with respect to the future of theatrical, like one way or the other, whether you are heeding the warnings that I and others are giving you, or whether you still are willing to trust Ted Sarandos or whatnot. However, whatever side of this you're on, right? Whatever your thoughts about it are in that regard, and you want to share them on Flight Chat, or if you have any thoughts, again, if you want to add anything to my schedule as far as watching movies for 2026 is concerned, theatrically speaking, you all know where to find me on Threads and on Instagram at the FliteCast, on BLUESKY at FliteCast. You can comment on the posting for this episode on the FliteCast YouTube channel. There's also the FliteCast Facebook page, and of course, I can be reached by email at ray@theflightcast.com. All right, take care. Stay safe out there. Again, Happy New Year. Here's to a safe and healthy 2026 for all of us, hopefully, fingers crossed. And I will see you all next time. Take it easy.